The legendary assassin Juzo slipped into the target zone, expecting the ghost town his intel had promised. Instead, the courtyard was crawling with security. Juzo didn't even blink. He reached into his coat, pulled out a cigar, and bit down on the end. When a guard stepped up, demanding ID, Juzo drew his piece and dropped him with a single, cold-blooded round before the guy could finish his sentence. The rest of the squad lunged all at once, but Juzo simply raised his 9mm. He cut through them like a phantom, systematically clearing the room without breaking a sweat. Inside, one of the ringleaders recognized the lethal precision instantly. This was the mythical shadow worker who would erase anyone from existence if the bounty was high enough. Terrified, the boss scrambled to the wall safe, scooped up a pile of high-value contraband, and bolted for the exit. He didn't make it far. Juzo casually extended a boot, sending the man crashing hard onto the concrete. "You've got it wrong," Juzo muttered, looking down at him. "I don't just kill for a paycheck. I only execute the ones who are past the point of redemption." The boss scrambled backward, desperately reaching for a hidden sidearm, but Juzo was already behind him. A heavy, sickening punch to the solar plexus folded the man instantly, knocking him out cold. With the area secure, the cleanup crew rolled in to scrub the scene. Outside, Juzo cornered his informant and apprentice, Nakoda, chewing him out for dropping him into a hornet's nest of 25 hostiles when the brief promised 2 at most. Nakoda took the heat, stammering apologies, though he couldn't hide his absolute awe that his mentor had wiped out an entire platoon solo. Before leaving, they popped open the runner's briefcase. Inside sat a bizarre, engineered wasp nest. Juzo shrugged it off, having no clue what kind of black market science he was looking at, and headed home. The next morning, Juzo caught the elevator in his building. A kid stepped in, took one look at Juzo's scarred, terrifying expression, and bolted out the doors in pure panic. Juzo sighed. He'd never been good with kids. He caught his reflection in the mirrored wall, wondering briefly if a softer touch back then might have saved his marriage. But who was he kidding? He and his ex-wife shared absolutely zero common ground. His entire identity was built on being a weapon, not out of passion, but simply because he was a master of the craft. It was a cold, incredibly boring existence. His existential dread was cut short when Nakoda knocked on his apartment door. As Juzo opened it, a stray wasp from the raid buzzed past his face and dug its stinger deep into his neck. A violent, agonizing, burning sensation surged through his veins. Juzo let out a strangled cry and collapsed heavily onto the floor. When his eyes snapped open, he wasn't home. He was strapped to a medical gurney inside a high-tech lab run by Eerie, his ex-wife and the head of the Assassin Syndicate's science division. "Wasp venom," Eerie said, handing him a compact mirror. She explained that the target they hit had been financing off-the-books genetic research. That insect wasn't natural. Juzo looked into the glass and froze. Staring back at him wasn't a weathered, middle-aged killer, but a smooth-faced teenager. The venom had completely reversed his biological clock, stripping away 2 decades. When he asked how to reverse it, Eerie just shrugged. They were in uncharted territory. Right on cue, Juzo's phone rang. It was the big boss. "Why do you sound like you haven't hit puberty?" the boss asked, taken aback by the high-pitched voice on the line. Juzo kept it brief, telling his employer that things had gotten complicated, but he was still fit for duty. The boss smiled on the other end. He had the ultimate undercover gig lined up. He needed Juzo to infiltrate a local elite middle school to scout it out before the boss enrolled his own daughter. Juzo's jaw dropped. "You want me to babysit a bunch of preteens?" Eerie burst out laughing in the background, pointing out that since Juzo had dropped out of school to become a killer anyway, a little education would do him some good. Juzo fought the assignment tooth and nail until the boss threw out a massive 7-figure payout. Just like that, Juzo was back in the academic system. The night before his grand debut, Nakoda rigged him up with a pair of sleek glasses embedded with high-res cameras and audio feeds for tactical backup. Juzo stared at his uniform in the mirror, thoroughly dreading the prospect of being trapped in a building full of loud, hormonal children. The next morning, classroom introductions went about as terribly as expected. While the normal kids gave standard greetings, Juzo delivered a deadpan, intensely awkward introduction that instantly branded him as a total creep to the popular girls. Only a quiet blonde girl in the corner seemed completely fascinated by his bizarre aura. Back at the safe house, Nakoda whipped up a comforting rice omelet to help soothe his mentor's bruised ego. He reminded Juzo that an eviction or suspension would blow the cover entirely, meaning no high-tier violence on school grounds. Juzo figured he could just coast through the boring lectures, but the afternoon math class threw him for a complete loop. The teacher introduced the concept of negative numbers. Having grown up strictly inside a brutal assassin training camp, Juzo had spent his entire life believing numbers only counted upward. The revelation that there was an entire mathematical universe below zero absolutely blew his mind. By the time the final bell rang, the old killer felt a strange, unfamiliar rush of adrenaline. He was genuinely excited to learn more. That night, Nakoda walked into the study to find the legendary hitman furiously scribbling in a workbook, completely obsessed with his homework. It was terrifying to watch a hardened killer bring that same lethal focus to pre-algebra. The following morning, a suspicious figure lurked near the school gates, watching the children arrive. By the end of the day, Juzo was riding the high of another successful study session when a loud commotion echoed from the courtyard. Walking over, he found a massive athletic freak wearing a cartoonish panda mask. The attacker had just dropped the school's security guard with a vicious martial arts kick. Instead of fleeing, the clueless students pulled out their phones, laughing and filming it for social media. The situation turned south instantly when the masked lunatic lunged at the two mean girls who had been mocking Juzo since day one, pinning them down. Through the earpiece, Nakoda monitored the feed. "They've been treating you like garbage, boss. You don't owe them anything. Let it go." Juzo narrowed his eyes. "I'm a grown man, Nakoda. I don't hold petty grudges against children when lives are on the line." Acting fast, Juzo tossed a standard pink eraser into the air and fired a silent, precise shot through it, creating a localized chalk dust smokescreen. Moving like a ghost through the haze, he delivered a heavy strike to the panda mask's ribs. To Juo's surprise, the guy didn't drop. His teenage muscles simply didn't pack the devastating kinetic force of his prime body. Desperate and cornered, the lunatic pulled out a stick of dynamite, threatening to take the whole courtyard with him. Juzo didn't hesitate. He delivered a brutal, agonizing kick straight to the man's groin, folding him instantly. As the dynamite slipped from the guy's hand, Juzo flicked it into the air with his shoe and shot it out of the sky, letting the explosion detonate safely above the roofline. When the smoke cleared, the two terrified girls looked up to see Juzo standing over them. "Was that you?" one of them stammered. Juzo looked away, keeping his voice flat. "No clue what you're talking about. Some random hero leveled that guy and ran off. I was just walking by." By the next afternoon, the schoolyard gossip was out of control. Rumors were flying, and Juo's class was setting up a massive group chat. The popular crowd hesitated to invite Juzo, debating whether the weird loner would ruin the vibe. Breaking the tension, the two girls from the courtyard marched right up to Juo's desk. Blushing furiously, they thanked him for looking out for them and asked for his number to add him to the chat. Juzo couldn't care less about teenage social media, but seeing their genuine effort, he handed over his device. That night at the apartment, Juo's phone was vibrating violently, blowing up with hundreds of notifications every second. With a quiet sigh, the legendary assassin closed his phone, picked up his mechanical pencil, and went back to cracking his textbooks. That concludes the opening chapter. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next drop, and click the video on screen to keep the story rolling.